After that first encounter in 2011, which occurred on March 1st, the early hours of March 1st of that year, I had a second encounter, which was even more spectacular. This second one occurred on July 11th, 2011. I was awakened by a very odd, loud noise. It was similar to a large bubble, a bubble gum popping, and it was quite loud. It woke me up. When I woke up, I was in a very odd position. I was flat on my back. Both of my ankles, my feet were together, my knees were together, and my arms were up against my sides, as were my palms, as if I was standing at attention, lying on my back. I was in a pyramid. It was comprised of all of the blankets on my bed. It was even with the top of my shoulders on both sides, and the edge of the pyramid, I was inside of it, except for my head. And the edge of the pyramid that faced toward the head of the bed was perfectly flat as a sheet of glass. And it was the edge of the covers and the blankets on my bed. It seemed as if they were pressed up against a sheet of glass. The room was lit in this beautiful, beautiful, deep, deep blue. There were streaks of blue undulating across the entire ceiling and down the walls, very slowly, intertwining and casting this beautiful deep blue glow. I seemed to be somewhat wary, and I don't know why, but I slowly brought my hands up and I grabbed each side of the pyramid down low. I didn't reach high at all. And I grabbed. And when I did, it didn't feel like the blankets or sheets on my bed. It felt like tissue. And as I pulled, the rest of the pyramid stayed exactly vertical and triangular in shape. The whole top of the structure came down, but it didn't collapse. It maintained its shape. And I remember thinking, if I let go, this will still float in the air. It's not going to fall. And the thought entered my mind that the structure is defying gravity. And this next description, this all happened in a split second, but I will describe first the ceiling at the far end of the room. About 18 inches out from the far wall and about a foot down from the ceiling. So it formed this kind of a soffit that ran across the entire width of the far end of the room, where the far wall met the ceiling. That whole area was this brilliant blue. The side that was vertical, that was facing me, looked like deep blue water, but it was perfectly flat, as if there was water suspended from the ceiling, and it was just cut with a knife, and it remained still there. But the side of it was this beautiful blue, the side that was facing me. The underside, the side that was facing down toward the floor, looked like the surface of water, agitated. That was the source of the moving light. It was lit from above. Not only was the foot, about 1 foot, that was facing me, Not only did that look like water, but it was transparent enough, even though it was deep blue, that I could see through that, and I could see up where the ceiling and the attic and the roof of that part of the room should be. And those components of the house appeared to be gone. There was someone standing at the foot of my bed, directly at my feet. It was big. It was very big. And it was not human. The blue structure that I just described seemed to wane. It seemed to close. And the creature standing at my feet, directly at my feet, started glowing blue. And then it pulsed twice and remained dark. Now, when I say it remained dark, it didn't go black, it didn't go dark. It had this light white glow to it. After it pulsed on the second time, it slowly turned its head and looked directly at me. And that was the only time I saw it move. It was put between 6 and 7 feet tall. Its head was more than twice the size of an adult human head. And the rear was spread very broad and rolled under in the back. It had enormous black eyes. It had 2 eyes, enormous, solid black. It had a nose, which was quite small. It had a mouth. It did not have lips. The mouth remained as a straight slit the entire time. It had ears. It had 2 ears, one on each side of its head. They were small and they laid flat against the side of its head. Its face was covered with what looked to be blood vessels. It had a cape. It was wearing a cape. The cape appeared to be black. It was very dark. I'll just say it's black. And it was cinched at the chin with a short Nehru-style collar. It had a small V opening at the front of the collar. The collar was only, it was quite narrow, maybe an inch in height. And from that point down, the entire creature was covered with this cape. It splayed significantly as it hung. It was fit right to its chin. So there was obviously some structure below its jaw onto which this collar was affixed. So below its jaw, its anatomy would be different than our jaw and neck. It did not appear to have shoulders. The area of the cape just below the collar was maybe 8 inches broad. Whatever the structure of it was, the upper part was much more narrow than the lower. The lower was quite broad. On the back of its neck, just above the collar of the cape, there were cylindrical structures protruding from the back of its neck. Some were fine, some were thick, and it looked like a mix of human fingers, adult human fingers, and porcupine quills. There were 2 or 3 of the thick ones that looked like the index finger on a adult human. And the porcupine quill looking things, there were dozens of those. They were all massed, intertwined, or intermixed with the thicker ones. They were about 10 to 12 inches long, and the tips of them appeared to be pointed. Above those features, there was just this big wad of stuff stuck to the back of its head as its head started to curve toward the rear. I only saw it when it was lit, and it just looked like a big wad, about the size of a human fist, just above those quills and finger-looking appendages. And then above that wad of stuff, on a more horizontal section of the inferior part of the head, was this large field of, it looked like a field of fingernails. Oh boy. There had to be more than 100 of these things all over the underside of the back of the head. And then, as I said, the rest of the head was spread very broad, and then rolled under at the back, sagging, like you'd imagine an octopus. It really sagged at the back. Its eyes, on the lateral aspect of each eye membrane, the external membrane of the eyes, near the outer region, the lateral regions of each eye membrane, when it turned its head and looked at me, one of the eyes caught the light differently than the other, the right eye. And I could actually see through the eye membrane into the back of the eye. And there were 4 or 5 vertical silver structures, about as wide as a narrow shoelace. They were silver, but like silver paint. They didn't glisten, but they were very easy to see. They were very prominent in that eye because of the light. And I keep saying there was light. There were no lights on in the room, but the creature seemed to be emanating light. I was not in my normal state of mind. When I had originally caught sight of the creature, when I had pulled the pyramid down out of my way, when it finally turned and looked at me, the thought that was in my head was, don't resist, it will be futile. I believe that thought was a telepathic thought from the creature. I seemed to be quite calm and not threatened. I just seemed to be lying there looking at this magnificent sight that was before me. And I had no concern or fear of what was in my room or what was happening. The creature had done something to me to create that calm where I was not going to resist or try to flee. The blue band on the ceiling reappeared. But this time, instead of just occupying the very far end of the ceiling of my room, it now occupied about half of the ceiling of my room. It was all the way out, the near edge of that water-like substance was now all the way to the foot of my bed. There was a vertical transparent panel. It spanned the width of the room from wall to wall and from ceiling to floor. It appeared to be glass. Huge glass panel, dividing the room almost in half. The creature was behind the panel. I was in my bed, and above me was ceiling. However, above the creature, that part of the building now appeared not to be there. What was there was a tunnel. Beautiful, beautiful blue tunnel. It was above the creature. It ran vertically. And the three walls that I could see, the wall to the left and the right and the far wall that I could see of this tunnel, it seemed to be comprised of blue light. I could see crisp corners where it met the two corners of my room, at the end of my room, where I could see those corners. The water-like medium was still hanging down about a foot from the ceiling. It still had the sea surface, the agitated sea surface, on the underside of it, the side facing the creature. And I could see up into it quite a distance now because the near edge was so close to me. I could see up into it maybe 6 or 8 feet. And the light got brighter and whiter the higher up I could see. At that very far end, as far up as I could see, it looked like big bubbles. And they were moving very slowly, just kind of, just moving, I don't know, just kind of moving very slowly. They weren't going out of place. They were just kind of rocking back and forth. I had a thought that I can actually sit up and lean forward, and I'll be able to look up and see the origin of this tunnel. I can look up into it. But it was a fleeting thought, because my immediate thought after that was moving toward the creature may provoke an undesirable response.